close enough, almost 6 at least, or almost is 6. I'm going to call this meeting to order for the City Council meeting for February 10th, and we will begin with a roll call.
Hay,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Williams, Miller.
All right, first item on our agenda is a presentation, and Mr. Schlegel, would you
Yes,
introduce
Your
our
Honor.
guest?
This evening, we do have our audit team here from Williams Keepers, and they'll be going over their audit information for you, as well as the annual comprehensive report. And the person that worked most closely with this audit this year is Vicki Diekey. And so, as our finance director, and Vicki, I will let you do the introduction.
It's always great to put a bow on our financial year, being September 30th, 2024. And we have tonight with us from Williams Keepers, Amanda Schultz and Kristen Brown. So I will turn it over to them. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Vicki. All right, well, good evening, everyone. I won't do reintroductions. There's a little bit more information about myself and Kristen. We'll be splitting our presentation tonight, but there's a little more information about us on this slide. And then Mercedes Kendall was the supervisor in charge of the city's audit again this year. All right, we're just going to jump right in. So this slide has a little bit of information about our governmental niche team. I don't think there were any significant changes to this slide from last year's presentation, but just a little more information about us. So we issued 2, you could probably say 3 reports as a result of our audit of the city's financial statements as of and for the fiscal year that ended September 30th, 2024, as Vicki mentioned. 2 of our reports were issued in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. So I'll cover the independent auditor's report in the next few slides, and then Kristen will cover the auditor's communication letter later on in the presentation. Although the city had expenditures of federal awards in excess of $750,000, which is the single audit threshold, the city actually wasn't required to have a full single audit performed for fiscal year 2024. Instead, you all were eligible for an alternative compliance examination engagement that focused on just the ARPA or the CSL FRF funding. We actually did this type of examination engagement 2 fiscal years ago as well, back in fiscal year 2022. But that was performed in accordance with government auditing standards. And as the last bullet point on this slide indicates, the results of our examination didn't disclose any matters that were required to be reported. That report ultimately goes on to the Treasury and is submitted through their portal. So that's a clean report. It can be found at the very end of the audited financial statements. If you want to take a look at that, it's like a whopping 2 or 3 pages. So, okay. So the city issued an annual comprehensive financial report, or an ACFR, again this year. In addition to the financial section, which is required under generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP, the ACFR includes both introductory and statistical sections, both of which are additional requirements for municipalities to be able to participate in the GFOA certificate program, and as such, putting this whole report together, most of which is provided by the city's management. This report is a sign of excellence in financial reporting. There is a little snip of the certificate here that the city received for its last audit for fiscal year 2023. So the city received the GFOA's Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting on last year's report, which represents the 35th consecutive year the city's received this award. That's something really to be proud of. And we and management of the city believe that the fiscal year 2024 report will receive the certificate as well. It meets all the qualifications. Okay, so So as I mentioned on the previous slide, the financial section of the ACFR is the only part that's required to be presented under generally accepted accounting principles. So that was the focus of our audit and will be the focus of our presentation this evening. This financial section of the ACFR includes the components that are listed on this slide, some of which we'll be covering in the following slides in a little more detail. So the first part of the financial section is the independent auditor's report, or it's commonly referred to as the opinion letter, and that can be found on pages 1 through 3 in the ACFR. The most important thing in this letter is that we issued an unmodified or a clean opinion on the city's financial statements. So in our opinion, those financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with GAAP, or generally accepted accounting principles. That is the best opinion that you can get, and it means that the users of your financial statements can rely upon them. The last slide that I'm going to cover before I turn it over to Kristen is this one. Following the opinion letter, which I should state or provide a reminder that that's really the only part of the city's audited financial statements, or really that entire ACFR reporting package, that is our responsibility as the city's independent auditor. So everything else that's contained in that report is the responsibility of the city's management, and like I said, they prepare the vast majority of the information, certainly outside of the financial section, and they review and approve the information in the financial section before the reports are issued. The management's discussion and analysis follows that opinion letter. It's on pages 4 through 17 in the ACFR. This is written from management's perspective, and although the financial statements themselves aren't comparative, they normally aren't for municipalities, so only one fiscal year of balances and transactions are reported in the financial statements, but that MD&A section itself is comparative and does compare current year balances and transactions back to the prior year, and also includes a high-level overview of financial and other factors that are impacting the city. It concludes with an economic outlook section. So those 13 or so pages are really good reading, again, written from management's perspective. Kind of provides the plain English narrative of what happened at the city during the year that would have impacted the financial statements that were audited, or what's upcoming on the horizon. So before I turn it over to Kristen to cover the rest of our presentation, I know this is Roger's last audit presentation, so I wanted to say thank you so much for everything that you've done from an audit perspective, working with us over the my entire career. So it's been great working with you. We'll certainly miss you, and wish you the best in your retirement. So, okay, I will turn it over to Kristen.
All right, I will be covering the rest of the financial statements and the auditor's communication letter that we prepared for the audit this year. So first is the government-wide financial statements. This is the first set of financial statements presented on pages 18 through 19. So the city's governmental and business type activities are included in these government-wide financial statements. So everything the city has to account for is included. All of its funds, all of the capital assets, all of its long-term debt are reported in these statements. So at a high level, the statement of net position, otherwise known as a balance sheet, is presented on page 18. So total assets and deferred outflows increased approximately $2.7 million, or 3% compared to the previous year. This is primarily due to increases in cash, capital assets, the pension plan other category, offset by decreases in the net pension plan asset, intergovernmental receivables, as well as lease receivables. Then the total liabilities and deferred inflows decreased approximately $1.9 million, or 14% compared to the previous year, primarily due to decreases in accounts payable, bonds and finance purchases, unearned revenue related to grants and leases, and pension plan other. Those decreases are offset by an increase in deferred revenue related to property taxes. Following the statement of net position is the statement of activities on page 19. So total revenues increased $693,000 or 4% compared to the previous year, primarily due to increases in charges for services, sales tax, franchise tax, and interest income. And then total expenses increased approximately $1 million or 8%, primarily due to increases in general government, public safety, parks and rec, and community development. Following those sets of financial statements is the fund financial statements. These are reported on pages 20 through 26. So the first set is related to governmental funds. These are presented on the modified accrual basis of accounting. So essentially the governmental funds do not include the capital assets or long-term debt of the city that's presented on the government-wide financial statements that I just covered. So at a high level, the balance sheet for the governmental funds presented total fund balance of $14 million for the end of the fiscal year. And then the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance presented an increase in the net change in fund balance. So it was $2.9 million as of the end of fiscal year 2024 versus $1 million as of the end of 2023. Following the governmental fund statements are the proprietary fund statements. So these are presented on the full accrual basis of accounting, so they do record and present any capital assets or long-term debt for these specific funds. So the statement of net position on page 24 presented total net position of $17 million for the proprietary funds. The statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in fund net position presented an increase in the change in net position. It should state $883,000 as of 2024 versus $1 million as of 2023. And then the proprietary fund statements also present a statement of cash flows. On page 26, this noted an overall net increase in cash and cash equivalents compared to the previous year. After the financial statements are the footnotes. These are on pages 27 through 48. The footnotes are a key to understanding the amounts recorded in the financial statements, so they provide a lot more detail about the balances that are recorded in those financial statements that we just covered. These footnotes were consistent with the prior fiscal year, except there was one new footnote, note 16, titled Adjustments. This footnote was required as a new accounting standard was required to be implemented this year, and it did have an impact on the city for 2024. So for that specific scenario, the Capital Project Reserve Fund was previously presented as a non-major fund, but was required to be presented as a major fund this year. And so that note just describes that process and how that change in accounting standard impacted the financial statements. Like I said, otherwise, the notes are pretty comparable to the previous year. Note 1 describes all of the accounting policies of the city. And then the other key notes included are Note 6, that relates to capital assets. Note 7 relates to long-term debt. Note 9 discusses the commitments and contingencies of the city. And Note 12 discloses information related to the loggers pension plan that the city participates in.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
You're talking about Note 6, I think it was, the capital assets is being changed to a major fund. Is that what you?
Oh, no. So Note 16 was there is a fund called the Capital Project Reserve Fund, and that specific fund is changing the presentation, changed from being non-major to major.
Okay, but that's not any adverse
Correct.
thing on, okay.
Yep. This new standard just required more disclosure when there are changes in funds being major or non-major. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
That is all I was going to cover related to the financial statements. Any other questions that you may have as it relates to the financial statements?
No, but I would say, I was reading your letter, and overall, we did we got our usual okay.
Yep.
Good job, right? And so I think as far as the public, knows that, that's good. And we got our usual 36th year of recognition this. So
Okay, then I will cover the last letter here. So we also prepared the auditor's communication letter. So this letter describes our responsibility as it relates to the financial statements, as well as the plan, scope, and timing of our audit. It also discusses compliance with all ethical requirements regarding our independence with the city. Also included in this letter are any significant risks that we have identified that could create a material misstatement in the financial statement. So for the city, those would be management override of controls and revenue recognition. The next portion describes various qualitative aspects of the significant accounting practices of the city. So it discloses information related to the significant accounting policies of the city. So as I just mentioned, that note 16, GASB Statement 100 related to accounting changes and error corrections was implemented in fiscal year 2024. So this specific scenario was an accounting change, not an error correction. Yep. GASB Statement 101 relates to compensated absences, and GASB Statement 102 relates to certain risk disclosures. Both of those standards will be effective for fiscal year 2025, and we'll work with Vicki to determine if they'll have an impact on the financial statements. Also included in this part of the letter are the significant accounting estimates that the city has. Those relate to the allowance for uncollectible receivable balances, the useful lives of capital assets, the post-closure liability related to the landfill, and the net pension asset and related deferred outflows and inflows of resources related to the loggers pension plan. We noted that the financial statement disclosures are neutral, consistent, and clear, and all of the key disclosures are included in the financial statements. Those key disclosures being capital assets, debt, and commitments and contingencies. We noted no significant difficulties encountered during our audit or disagreements with management. Like we've already stated, Roger, Vicki, and their team are always well prepared and available to answer any questions and provide any additional information we need as we're performing the audit.
It'll get even better next year. Roger won't be here.
We won't tell him.
About 50%.
Also, we would identify any uncorrected misstatements, but there were no uncorrected misstatements as a part of our audit procedures this year. And then lastly, we discuss internal control as it relates to the city. So we do consider internal control as a part of our planning procedures, but we do not express an opinion on the effectiveness of the city's internal control. Based on this, we didn't identify any deficiencies in internal control that we consider to be a material weakness for the city, which is consistent with previous years. Any questions about that letter or the audit process in general?
how long did it take you to do the audit? Because I can't remember.
So we have, we perform interim fieldwork testing, which is kind of our planning phase. So usually that's the in-charge Mercedes and a staff for 2-3 days. And then we perform final fieldwork in November. And that's a week-long process. So that's usually, Mercedes is here for that entire week and usually 2 or 3 staff. It kind of depends if we have to perform a single audit, which takes some additional time and additional staff to perform that piece of the audit. And then from November to now, we're preparing the financial statements, having them reviewed. So I don't know how many hours in total, but you can kind of do the math. It is a pretty long process, and the wrap-up phase really is kind of the longest process. We've tested everything. Now we're making sure that it's presented appropriately in the final report.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You guys have,
Curiosity, just for my curiosity, how long have you all been doing this?
We've been auditing the City of Mexico for as long as I've been with Williams Keepers, so
Yeah,
that's
but you
about
started when
16.
you were, what, 4?
Yeah. So that's been about 16 years, but it has to be at least 20, maybe even at least 25. What would you say, Roger? I think you're doing the math in your head right now.
Well, I would say 30 plus.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the first time I was on the council when I was 4, I think we engaged Williams Keepers then because we put out RFPs, I guess, or whatever you call it. And that was like 87 or something like that, almost 40 years
The
ago.
governmental audit segment is a niche. Not just every accounting firm will even bid a governmental audit. so.
Understand?
Yeah, a lot of firms, unfortunately, are getting away from their governmental practices or that, niche area. So we're really the only ones still doing it in mid-Missouri. We also keep, up with changes in standards and provide training for our clients that Roger and Vicki usually attend annually. But of course, bigger firms in St. Louis, Kansas City are still doing them, but not everyone does them anymore.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you all for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Congratulations again, Roger.
Have a safe trip home.
Yep.
Marcy.
Okay, approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of January 27th.
Second.
Yes.
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 Okay, we go to our first resolution of the evening, which is a title only and passage, and it has to do with residential rates and for sanitation services. Mr. Schlegel.
Yes, Your Honor. Each year at this time, we do set our rates for residential sanitation services because of our annual contract and our increases that we have. At budget time, we estimated it probably about 3% increase. We are less than that. And to cover the details of what our anticipated expenses and rates to be, Roger Haynes.
Good evening, Council, Mayor Briggs. In April of 2024, the City of Mexico began a new 10-year residential sanitation services contract with Danes Waste Disposal Incorporated of Mexico, Missouri. The contract includes annual pricing adjustments that are set to take place April 1st of each year. Staff has taken into consideration residential unit pricing with the services contract, along with other operating expenses related to sanitation services provided by the city that are to be properly funded through user fees. Staff has provided to council a summary of anticipated expenses for the sanitation department for a 12-month period beginning April 1, 2025 through March 31st, 2026, followed by a fee adjustment calculation. It should be noted that anticipated costs associated with the household hazardous waste collection center and part of the brush yard operations are included within the user fee analysis. In looking at all the expenses for the residential refuse pickup and the other services provided, net interest income and collections on our special pickups, we have a total estimated cost of $829,171. We divide that by our average number of customers over the last 12 months, which is 4,415, and that accounts to $187.81 per year per account. We then divide that by the 12-month cycle to come up with a monthly fee of $15.65 per month. The $15.65 per month will represent the base rate for sanitation services. Last year's base rate was $16.26, equaling a base rate adjustment of approximately 2.49% between the two 12-month cycles. In addition to the base rate for services, a fuel cost adjustment is made part of the monthly service cost in result to the terms of our contract with Danes Waste Disposal Incorporated. Staff does recommend that council proceed with reading by title only and passage of the attached resolution setting the monthly base rate for the sanitation service in the amount of $15.65 with a fuel cost adjusted rate cap of $16.82 for the 12-month period beginning April 1, 2025 through March 31st, 2026. It should be noted, in order for us to reach that rate cap, diesel fuel would have to hit $8.05 a gallon. So that's fairly unlikely, but not impossible. Another item that I did provide within this packet for council's review is we did a survey of 14 area communities, ranging from large to small communities, to see what their current monthly residential rate is for refuse services. As you can see in that report, which is on the right-hand side of this sheet, the average rate for those 14 cities was $17.78. So you can see our base rate is more than $2 less, and even if we went to that rate cap fuel adjustment, we would still be considerably less than the average of those 14 cities. The fuel adjustment currently is 26 cents, and last year at the same time, that fuel adjustment was 30 cents. I'd be glad to answer any questions council might have.
I move for reading of bill number 2025-07.
Second.
Hay.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Glover.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Roger.
Bill number 2025-07, a resolution adopting residential refuge rates covering sanitation services beginning April 1st, 2025. I move for passage of bill number 2025-07.
Second.
Hay.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Glover.
Yes.
Okay, other business. We have a staff report. This is something for us to review, not that requires action, right? But
Correct.
Will you explain it, Mr. Schlegel?
Yes, this is for review of the AP Green Industrial Site Sketch Plan. Some may refer to this at sometimes such as a preliminary plat or whatever. Through our planning process, the sketch plan, site plan, preliminary does not always come to council, doesn't need to come by process. It's done by planning and zoning and by staff, but this one, because it's kind of been in the forefront, kind of important, and people ask about this regularly. We just thought it was important at least to bring you up to speed, give you kind of an update of what this is and what's going on out there. So this is information only at this point, but we thought it was good information for you to have. So to kind of cover what the sketch plan, the site plan, and the general layout and so on is, Rita Jackson.
Good evening, council. The Planning and Zoning Commission met on Tuesday, February 4th, to hear the review of the AP Green Industrial Sketch Plan submitted by McClure Engineering Company on behalf of AP Green Industrial Plant LLC owners. AP Green Industrial Sketch Plan is a planning document which details the general layout of the lots, streets, storm drainage, and green spaces. City staff reviewed and worked with Ryan Fuller, McClure Engineering, to support compliance with Chapter 36 of the City of Mexico Code subdivision. Submittal of the review of the sketch plan allows the developer to proceed with their development in one of two ways. Upon completion of the construction plans, they can proceed to construction. Once construction is completed, whether it would be for the single phase or for the entire development, proceed to request approval of the final plat and subdivide the land. Number two, upon completion of the construction plan, post a bond in the amount of the anticipated infrastructure and utilities needed to serve the development, whether that be the single phase or the entire development. Once the bond has been posted, the developer may proceed to request approval of the final plat and subdivide the land under the conditions that all infrastructure utilities are constructed within a 2-year time frame. Should the developer fail to meet the time frame, the city may pull their bond and have the work conducted at the expense of the developer. This proposed development, includes approximately 100 acres split into 12 tracts. The approach to the development will likely include 3 phases. However, this could change depending on the development which settles in that area. Phase 1 of the current plan is to develop tracks 1, 3, 4, and track 1 currently houses a cell phone tower and a natural gas regulator. Phase 2 is anticipated to include development of tracks 2, 5, 6, 7, and 8. It should be noted that Harbison Walker International is located on track 6, and Harbison plans to stay on site throughout the development. Track 2 is anticipated to be joint-owned, maintained, and serve as the location for staging rail loading, unloading. Phase 3 will complete the development by establishing tracks 9, 10, 11, and 12. A total of 3 streets are planned to be developed, to be constructed in a phased manner as the development grows. The primary mean of ingress and egress will utilize the existing entrance exit of Green Boulevard near the current Harbison Walker International site. This is currently projected to be a 2-way street with a 2-way left turn lane. However, the lane configuration may change into a 2-way street only as construction plans are developed. Additionally, an extension of East Breckenridge Street is anticipated to be constructed. Both of these locations are anticipated to be public right-of-way and city-maintained. A 3rd street, likely private, is anticipated to be developed, which will provide access from the main street to track 2 for rail loading and unloading. The city's engineering department has completed its review of the submitted sketch plan. The review, included an evaluation of layout, phasing, infrastructure, stormwater, and more. The Public Safety Department was also involved in the evaluation of the proposed sketch plan. All input from city departments was passed along to McClure Engineering and incorporated in either the sketch plan itself or noted for implementation in the construction plans. The updated sketch plan dated January 21, 2025 has been deemed to meet all criteria found in Chapter 36 of the Mexico City Code. We do have Ryan Fuller in the audience, as well as Drew, for questions. And I might not be able to answer if you have.
I'm assuming that at some point this will have to come to the council, and at what point would that be?
That will be for the final.
That's what I assumed. Okay.
But in the meantime, they can proceed with building, or post the bond, whatever, under those 2 scenarios, so.
Right, okay.
In order to do that, so. That's why we thought it was important to come now, so that you had a preliminary review of it, because if you start seeing something happening out there, everybody's gonna ask what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, the plan is here already, so.
So, the way I understand it, then those big buildings that are up, the old AP Green office buildings and things, those all will have to be taken down by the person developing the plot, right?
At this point, it's my understanding those will stay there. They will not be the main buildings that are sitting there. It's not part of the development at this time. Yes,
Yeah, good evening. My name is Ryan Fuller. I'm with McClure Engineering. I've been working with Drew and Rita to prepare this sketch plan and working with the ownership group at AP Green LLC. So currently, this sketch plan shows how we would intend to take, it's about 100 acres, and break this up into individual tracts that would become available either for sale or potentially for build to suit, where our current owners would build a facility to the specifications of a potential tenant that would then come in and pay them monthly lease to use the facility. So The first step here is preparation of the documents that would be for the road construction and the utilities to serve each of these lots. There is some demolition that would be necessary for the public roads and the public utilities to go in. Your question specifically about the old AP Green, an office building and research lab, demo of those buildings wouldn't be necessary with construction of the infrastructure, but obviously those buildings are not in great shape. So it's either a significant renovation to those, or they would intend to keep them and repurpose them for a tenant, or demolition to develop that individual tract. A few other things that I would just
Track are
note.
those on? Are they both on one?
Those are on tract 3. Sorry.
Track 3. Can you see? You can barely see it.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Harbison Walker recently renewed their lease, and so that lease is still good. They will remain there and be housed on tract 6. There's a third building near Harbison Walker that's not used as part of their operation that would be removed as part of the public road construction. At this point, there is an option to phase this property. There's still discussions going on whether it is built in phases or if all of the infrastructure is built in a single phase at the same time. You guys hit on the process in terms of CD construction documents and either final plating afterwards or posting a bond. I don't know that there's a lot more that I necessarily need to touch on, but I'm happy to answer any other questions that you all may have.
I guess the tearing down of the buildings, as it says, phase 1 is for tracks 1, 3, and 4, which 3 houses those buildings. Are you talking about development of setting that up if somebody wants to build a building there, then it's on them to tear them down and then build that building? Or are you wanting to tear them down and then set it up for somebody to come in? Are you waiting for a lease to be signed or dimensions on a building to be agreed on, or?
Gotcha, yeah, I understand. So we wanted to set this up just so that we had the option to do the phases, because it is a significant investment to put in. It's about a half a mile of road. It'll be over half a mile of sewer to get to this site, and you'll have water running along the road. So it's a significant investment. The ownership group is still reviewing if they want to bite off that whole piece or do it in phases. The advantage to doing like phase 1, if phase 1 were to be done of tracks 1, 3, and 4, you get the public infrastructure in place that would allow the final plat for those first 3 lots to be approved, and then they're able to be marketed and either sold or get a tenant agreement to then sell or develop those individual lots. And so the approach would be either once it's sold to a buyer that will then develop it, or if we build it, at that point, yes, once we knew what the building was going to look like, how the site would work, then the buildings would get torn down and new buildings put up, or major overhauls to the existing buildings.
I take it these lots are mostly what you see as commercial type projects, right?
Correct. It's currently zoned I2, I believe. So all of the uses that they envision for this being a mix of office, manufacturing, industrial, all of that would be supported by the current zoning. And so that is the group that they'll be marketing these lots to.
Anybody else? I think we're good. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
We'll be looking forward to seeing what happens to all of it. The whole town will be looking forward to it.
It's an exciting project.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is root control. Mr. Schlegel.
Yes, Your Honor, this is for the wastewater department. We've used Duke's root control before and to treat certain segments of the sanitary sewer collection system, and we want to do some more. And to cover the details, Drew Wilfer.
Good evening, council. As Bruce mentioned, excuse me, it's actually been a few years, 2021, since we last used Duke's Root Control. They provide a number of services, one of which is a treatment that goes into the sanitary sewer system that will kill the root. Doesn't totally kill the plant, it kills the root, and we have a number of locations throughout town where we do have root problems. We have traditionally been on a cyclical approach with this so that we cover our mains once every so many years. That got dropped somewhat in 2021 because of other higher priority projects and trying to divert funding to those. We are now back to the idea of trying to get back on a cyclical approach. So we are utilizing Buy Board, which is a competitively bid cooperative purchasing site, and our budget for this year is not to exceed $30,000. So we have approached Duke's Root Control with that. They have provided their estimate with a unit price to us, and we have our mains laid out. So we're asking council to authorize root treatment, excuse me, with the city's sanitary collection system through Duke's Root Control in our 24-25 fiscal year. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Just, do you know what kind of chemicals they do use to put on those roots?
I know it's not copper.
It says it's not copper.
Yeah, I know that much, and I need to look into that some more, and I'll be happy to
Okay,
do
I'm
that.
just curious.
It's a foaming agent, interestingly enough, so it gets fully around the entire perimeter of that pipe and catches anything as it's going through.
All right, anybody questions?
Old clay tile won't stop the root, huh? I need some schedules.
We've pulled some, 20-foot long roots, I think, from the mains before. It's
Okay.
pretty crazy.
Well, don't waste it on the pipes we got to replace downtown. Those 40 pipes.
Do you need a motion?
Yes. Yeah, I'm looking for, here,
What do you want it to say, what it says up here in the staff report?
Yeah, we need $3,000 or whatever.
30,000?
30,000, is that what?
30, please.
I'm looking, we're looking, yeah, right here it says, not to exceed 30,000.
Well, I was thinking about AP Green, we could go get some of that dirt and probably throw it in there. Might kill some of those roots too. Might save us 30,000.
May not want to know that.
Go ahead, Larry.
Okay. Move we, when you want to approve a contract for a maximum $30,000 for root treatment services for sanitary sewer collection system through Duke's Root Control. Does that sound good? Perfect. We need a second for the motion?
Second.
Hague,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Okay, moving from roots, we go to an asphalt paver. Mr. Schlegel.
Yes, Your Honor. As part of our budgeting for the year, we wanted to update our paver, our self-propelled asphalt paver, and we went and looked for some used pavers, and to cover the details of what we have found, Drew Williford.
This one's a little more exciting from the standpoint of it's not just root control. Our existing paver dates back to 1989, so it's a unit that has been used. I'm not going to call it old, but I will say it's well used at this point in time, and we are in need of purchasing a new to us paver. A new paver these days runs a significant amount of money. We put bids out in the Mexico Ledger, I should say an advertisement out in Mexico Ledger on November 20th, and then we also mailed a bid to an advertisement to 7 vendors. We ended up having one vendor, CMW Equipment out of Bridgeton, Missouri, submit 2 options for the City of Mexico. No other bids were received, and those bids were opened on December 10th. A few quick specifications on this paver was we did ask that the paver have less than 2,000 hours on the unit, and that we could pave with an approximate width of 13.5 feet and an 8-foot minimum screed width, as well as a diesel engine and a tracked drive, so no wheels per se on all of this. The option that we're recommending is the lower priced option. You'll see the 2 options, one being at $151,650. That includes freight. The other option being over $200,000, which is well beyond our budget. The 2018 Carlson CP 130 asphalt paver actually meets all of our bid specifications, and our crew drove to Burr Ridge, Illinois, to review the paver, and they fired it up, and we found out actually this particular paver is part of a rental fleet, so it's been very well maintained. Everything looks really good on it. What we're proposing is to move forward with that purchase for this particular paver from CMW Equipment. And one little side note on some of this, our crews are generally well-equipped for concrete work. But the one thing that we aren't well-equipped for, traditionally speaking, is asphalt work. And one of the steps to get us more equipped for that is getting a paver that can handle a wider width, and we can pave, in essence, have multiple gates on it and automatic augers. Our current one doesn't have all of that. So this will make our operations quite a bit more efficient. So we're beginning to take an approach when we contract out for asphalt work of setting aside about $20,000 a year now to use for our internal crews to go out and pave. And that's by far and large a lot cheaper and more efficient use of our money. We can't use all of our capital improvement sales tax money for that. We don't have enough manpower and time, but taking $20,000 has gone a long ways to help our streets. So we recommend proceeding to go ahead and purchase an asphalt paver, the CP 130 Carlson unit from CMW Equipment. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
And this can use our regenerated one. We can use our regenerated asphalt.
Our recycler?
Yeah.
We still use that, and that's been working out great for us. But generally speaking, our recycler is good for anything less than about 5 tons of asphalt. If you get above that, then it's a little cumbersome. So it's not really a paver. You can kind of think of it as a patcher, maybe.
Okay.
That might be a good way to look at it. This one, you take a full dump truck load, dump it in the back of it, or in the front of the paver, and then you screed it, and you can go through 10 tons of asphalt very, very quickly.
And our budget was 125, and we're going to pay 152 roughly.
My apologies, I didn't touch on the budget. Yes, we budgeted $125,000 for the paver. There is a significant overrun there, and due to that overrun, we will be able to cover that overrun of nearly, I think, $26,000 or so, $26,650, from savings and other capital line items that we've had. We've got a savings on truck purchase that actually you'll see tonight, and then also the cost does not include the trade-in value for that
I wondered
paver.
about that
So,
too. Okay.
Yep, we didn't get a trade-in on the paver, and you'll notice we also are going to reject the trade-in on the truck, and all of that won't be included, but it will be enough to cover the overage of that for the paver. So my apologies there, that's a critical item.
We're going to pay Muldrow and Bill MoDOT. We're going to make up on that.
Seems fair to me.
That's a good idea.
Fair to me.
I move that we buy the asphalt paver from CMW Equipment in Bridgeton, Missouri, the 2018 Carlson CP 130 for $151,650.
Second.
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Lovett?
Yes.
Okay, next thing, we have a truck. Mr. Schlegel.
Yes, sir. We budgeted for the purchase of a new snowplow truck for the street department. This is replacing a piece of equipment, and to cover the details, once again, Drew Wilford.
Yeah, this particular purchase will replace a 2014 Ford F-550. It's got 4,860 hours on it, a little over 48,000 miles on the unit. This will be a snowplow truck. It'll have a dump bed with it, one of our core work units, I would call it. Let me start off with the budget on this one, since I missed mentioning that on the previous one. Our budget for this year allows $122,000 for the purchase of said 550 or 5500 model. So what we were asking for is a 2025 new purchased 550 or 5500 or equivalent truck. We ended up advertising in the Mexico Ledger on December 11th, sent that advertisement to 13 vendors, and we did receive 2 bids, one from Beelman Automotive and one from Joe Mockins. The low bid was Beelman Automotive, and they are out of, my apologies here, Troy, Missouri. We've been in touch with them on a few different questions regarding their bid. One of those questions relates to the bed, so you'll notice that in the letter, the costs are broken up showing the chassis and the bed. The chassis cost for Beelman was at $68,839. And then there's two options for essentially the bed of that truck. One change I'll note as compared to when this was written, we have actually gathered enough information at this point in time. There was some issues which remained unclear as to whether the cheaper of those beds was going to work and what pump was needed to allow us to perform snowplow operations. Now that we have those numbers, as of today, we can say that the Reekers option for that $19,000 will not work. So we will be looking at bringing a second item back to council that will be for that $38,000 bed, and that total price, $106,839. But before you tonight, we're asking to move forward with just the purchase of the chassis for $68,839 through Bellman Automotive. And that's to secure that right now and get the essentially the pricing and then start the whole delivery timeframe, because it's going to be a solid 5 months until we can essentially go from purchase to delivery. It's important to note that we do have a 5-year or 100,000-mile powertrain warranty, whichever comes first on this vehicle, and the vehicle being proposed is a Dodge 5500 in this particular case. So everything is checked out, meets our specs. We'd recommend proceeding to buy the chassis only, once again, from Bellman Automotive for a total price of $68,839, and we will return most likely next time requesting to purchase a Knapheide bed from that same vendor.
Gas or diesel?
Diesel.
I move we purchase the chassis only from Bellman Automotive at a price of $68,839. Is that all you need?
Yeah.
Second.
Hay,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you, Drew. We now have claims. Do I have a
We pay the
motion?
claims.
Second.
Hay,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Weber.
All right, we're down to council comments, and eeny, meeny, miny, moe. Steve, you want to start?
Not much. Congrats, Finance Department, Vicki and Roger, every year. So keep getting the certificates. So the wall, we're going to run out of room at the wall eventually with all those. But
New City Hall, make a bigger wall.
I mean, I thank God you guys do it, because I go cross-eyed and I start looking at all those numbers and stuff. So we appreciate everything you do. So thank you.
Larry?
Yes, I have a question related to the audit and all this stuff. I asked a question about how long we've been doing it with them. And I guess I've always heard, I know nothing about accounting, don't profess to know anything about accounting, don't reconcile my checkbook. But I've always heard there's a term which should probably change accountants, or at least look into changing, because the relationship becomes too close, et cetera, whatever all that means. Is there any truth to that?
There is. and we
Is 40
go
years
out-
too long?
We will go out for quotes again for the next 4 years, and we do that every 4 to 5 years.
Oh, okay.
And as they mentioned, there's so few that will do that. And with them being in Columbia versus firms that may be in St. Louis or Kansas City, they've had a terrific reputation, and their cost has been considerably less than those others that have quoted in the past. We'll see what happens when we send that out. That will be sent out here in the next week or two.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I really have nothing to add except congratulations on the audit. You guys did a terrific job. And anyway, I guess we're okay without the new snowplow truck. We'll be fine for Thursday or Wednesday or whenever we get this next storm. Mr. Schlegel, do you have anything to say?
I have nothing at this time, Your Honor.
Okay. It's the time for public comment. If anybody wants to speak to us, please come to the mic, state your name, state your address. You have 3 minutes, and I don't see anybody, so move on to adjournment.
I move to adjourn. Second.
Hay,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.